little cherubs. Ped Talks here. I'm at Ped Talks HQ, my bar at home. I'm very privileged, I know. We work hard and hopefully the fruits of your labour, you can do things that you dream of. Listen, I haven't been here on this channel very much and I'm going to change that. Apologies, I'm working very hard. I do spend some time on TikTok, a very small following there, a bit more jovial and a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. I do talk about Chelsea, and obviously it's been on my lips, like every Chelsea fan, how bad the situation is currently. And look, other than working, I probably spend more time reading and listening about Chelsea for various media outlets than I do anything else. And that is TalkSport, obviously newspapers, and some of the great Chelsea fan TV type and Chelsea supporter channels that are out there. Big shout out to Rory Jennings, very articulate young man, Yannick, Eunice, George Benson over in Bali, George Benson Football, Chelsea Football Club TV or whatever it's called. So and Chelsea Fan TV, they do a great job outside the ground. And I think there's clearly a lot of hyperbole and whipping up, and the media haven't helped that. And we are in a shambolic situation. There is no doubt about it. But I wanted to just create a video with some semblance of being rational and putting a little bit of balance on things, because I too have been hugely emotional about it. I've been shouting at the TV, shouting in the stands. I've been a fan. I've been a Chelsea fan. I was indoctrinated in the early 80s. My grandfather, my father came over from Portugal in the 60s and 70s. Chelsea were, they lived in Parsons Green and around the local areas. King's Road was a stone's throw. Chelsea were the fashionable team. And I was indoctrinated. But when my first memories of watching Chelsea, and I got my first VHS tape, and even my first game, I think 83, something like that, we were pony. We didn't really play good football, but I had no other choice than to support Chelsea. There was no alternative. And I took that responsibility with gusto. And I, through thick and thin and all that good stuff, good old British mentality, but our pitch was poor. I mean, most of the pitches were poor, but ours was particularly poor. It had it sort of goes like that. There's a big hump in the middle, lots of sand everywhere, very intimidating stadium. When hooliganism was really rife, barbed wire fences and standing, you'd have to walk through the shed end to get through to the family section. It felt like a war zone. But that's the reality of where this club has been, and it's gone through different cycles and moments. And we've been so privileged over the last 20 years, and the level of success that we've achieved, I think, has slightly skewed the reality of the last 100 odd years the club has been around. And it's a natural course of events that we go through these peaks and troughs. And we're just really well used to winning. And when we don't, I mean, the lows that we've reached are unprecedented, see it clearly. We're picking up stats now, the kind of stats that you don't want to pick up, which is just frightening reading. And, I took a peek at the form table knowing that it wouldn't be good. But when you do look at the sort of last 6 games in the league, we've, I think, accumulated 1 point. We are the worst team in the league on form. The last 6 games, including the Champions League games, that Lampard's been at the helm, albeit as a caretaker, we haven't won anything, as we know. Some of those performances have had a blend of horrific and not too bad. Look, my take on it is this. Context, where we've come from, the different cycles that clubs go through, and we've seen it with Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United to a degree when Ferguson left. You know, this is expected. When Roman left us, forced to leave us, you know, we still sing his name today. We cannot thank that guy enough for what he's done for us as a club, as fans, to be able to experience and have the opportunity to feel what it's like to be an elite club, a winning club with silverware galore. And that will, we never change that history. That we have created history in that club in the last 20 years, and that can never be eroded or diminished. But the true fact remains that the only individuals that you can blame for any football club is neither the players nor the manager or the staff. It is the ownership of the club. It's the individuals that run the club are culpable and ultimately responsible for good and bad decisions that they make. No one else. They put all those individuals in place. And yes, they may absorb those players from previous regimes. Managers come in, they have to deal with what they have. They have to help, you know, acquire other players and give their advice and all those sorts of things. But you look at the key decisions that Ken Bates made, that Matthew Harding made, that Roman made, and they got a lot of stuff right. And the biggest problem now is that the new ownership at Chelsea, Todd Boehly and Clear Lake Capital, by the way, on paper, very intelligent people that manage large sums of money on behalf of other individuals and make those individuals and themselves extremely wealthy, have come in and not made one good decision. In fact, I would say that everything they have done to date has not worked. And you can talk about the fact they got rid of Thomas Tuchel. We don't know what happened internally. I understand, listening to Simon Jordan on TalkSport, that something did happen, which, in his opinion, he would have done the same thing as Todd. We don't know what that is. There's speculation what it is. You know, he slept with his wife. I don't know what happened, right? But the fundamental fact is that decision alone is not the reason why we are where we are today. It's a collection of decisions, of poor decisions that have happened. The fact that you get rid of Tuchel is one thing. The fact that you don't replace Tuchel with an equally elite manager, or a manager that has the CV and the capability and know-how to manage a basket case, then what do you expect when you put Graham Potter in the hot seat at Chelsea? He was rubbing his hands together and saying, how the hell have I come from a really average Brighton team? He wasn't pulling up trees. You know, look at what De Zerbi's doing now. Come on. To be paid 12 million a year, to be paid one of the top 10 highest paid managers in the world at Chelsea. It is one of the most coveted football management seats in the world, bar none. It's up there. I don't care what anyone says. It is the job that most managers would absolutely take. And what do we expect? We buy a load of players, we change the tack from Koulibaly type players, shorter contracts, to young stars or young potential stars on really long stupid contracts to get over FFP. It's just a car crash. So when we look at who's to blame, it's only Todd Boehly. And, you know, Lampard, they're trying their best to ruin his legacy. It doesn't matter if he lost all the games. We'd still love Lamps. He bleeds blue. He's been given the opportunity. He had to take it. He hoped, I'm sure, that it would turn out better than it has. And maybe in the last five, 6 games that are left, that he can get some semblance of respect back as a coach. But I really don't believe he will, and I'll come to that. And you create just a manic situation where the poor decisions after poor decisions create such chaos amongst the team. The energy in the stadium isn't good. The team are low on confidence. You've had 3 or 4 different types of coaches in the last season. What's the style and pattern of play? You know, who's going to be our manager? What are we playing for? You know, and I don't think players go out to lose games. Of course they don't. They are professionals. But I do believe that if the ship isn't being steered, it becomes rudderless. It meanders. It doesn't have a direct path. It can veer off course. And that's what we are. We are a ship that's veered off course, and probably a lot further off course than we would like, clearly. And if we were in this position earlier in the season, there was a real possibility that we could get relegated, and it's still a distinct possibility. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that will not happen. But until it's mathematically impossible, we will wait and see. So, context, poor decisions. When Roman came in, when Bates came in, they made 2 or 3 early key decisions. Bates got the club more financially astute, ran it in a way that, you know, it wasn't going to be run in the ground, that we could sustain it. There were some tough times. He had to do some innovative things. Chelsea pitch ownership, all those sorts of things. And, you know, for me, one of the big, you know, Harding and Bates, let's put them in the same sort of era. Glenn Hoddle coming in, brilliant decision. One of the best midfielders of his generation, one of the finest midfielders England has ever produced, in the style of a continental footballer, more akin to a Brazilian. Bringing him in then started to attract attention from the other European leagues, Italy, Spain, France, where let's be realistically, in the early 80s and 90s, Italy and the Serie A was a far superior league to what the Premier League is now. That's not the case anymore. The riches are completely different. But all the big fees and transfer fees were in Italy in that time. I remember Lentini, I think it was 10 million or 12 million. It was the world record fee. It was crazy, 12 million. We paid that for a 17-year-old. You know, and the reality is that those decisions set a key of events. And I think Bowie, coming back to today, the poor decisions have led to this consistently, and, you know, a situation where we've eroded and imploded. To the point where we're even talking about Chelsea potentially being relegated, which I don't think we will. Hullet came in. Hullet then brings in Vialli, attracts Zola, Di Matteo, Pierluigi Casaraghi. The French boys come in. Leboeuf, Desailly, Deschamps, Petit. The list goes on. Spanish lads, Ferrer, you know, and we start to change the culture of the club. We start to bring in individuals that take their job seriously as professionals. Diet, training, physical work, how you conduct yourself off the field. All the things that, you know, weren't really synonymous with football in the 80s and 90s. In England, let's be honest, Ray Parlours. We've all heard the stories of Merson and Gaza, you know, up at Middlesbrough, you know, turning up to training drunk, you know, Roy Keane having a kebab before a game. You know, these things just wouldn't really happen now, and the game has obviously moved on. We talk about Arsene Wenger and Arsenal changing it, but I really do believe the combination of the Italians coming to the King's Road, it's always had that cosmopolitan feel, that, you know, classy, all the things that Chelsea weren't on the pitch when I started supporting them started to change. And forward to when Ranieri came in, and again, you know, I love Ranieri when he came in, the Tinker Man. Some great times, we enjoyed it. It meant something. We didn't win every game. We weren't winning machines. We weren't trophy machines, but there was a gradual improvement, but again, a realism of who we were and what we were, and an identity. And we've lost that today, I get that. And then Roman comes in. The day that it was announced Roman was going to buy the club. I mean, I don't know about you, but never heard of him. Couldn't even pronounce his name properly. Took me a good year to get Abramovich right. The concept of a billionaire was so alien to me, especially as an owner of a football club. What, a billionaire owner? That never happens. What does that mean? You know, and I don't think we truly realise and appreciate it. And probably that naivety and that ignorance to agree was bliss, wasn't it? But I remember being at an away friendly at Vicarage Road against Watford, and Bates was behind me, and he was transitioning out of the club. I think he was still advising Abramovich, but he said to me, Joe Cole's coming in, Glenn Johnson's coming in. He's reeled off 4 or 5. He was really open and said, we're going to change the dial. And I'm like, well, that's optimistic. You know, and I'm looking out on the pitch and I'm looking at some of the rabble that were out there, you know, from the reserves, and they had a few different players. My mate was playing for Watford at the time, Scott Fitzgerald, check him out. And the reality is, Roman made lots of good decisions. He made decisions that we didn't quite agree with. I think, you know, Carlo getting the boot, you know, in the tunnel at Everton, infamous. You know, Carlo won the double the season before. He didn't have many scruples, Roman. He took decisions, very clear decisions, and but at the end we believed in Roman. In Roman we trusted. But the biggest and best decision that he ever made, other than buying Stamford Bridge and Chelsea, was Jose Mourinho. A fellow countryman. I couldn't believe it. All my dreams had come true. A Portugueser coming in to manage my beloved Chelsea. You know, won the Champions League with Porto, a fairly unfashionable club at the time in the Portuguese Liga. And I just thought, this is amazing. All my dreams had come true. Not even gone near a trophy yet. And I remember the first game. I remember the first interview. Do you remember the first interview, Jose? It's like stuff of infamy. You know, it's just stuff of folklore. I am the special one from the bottles. A saying in Portuguese that was misinterpreted, but it sounded like I'm the special one from the, you know. But what reality is, he is that confident. He is that guy. But what an opening salvo. And we never look back. We never look back. The pre-season, the confidence that we felt, Roman at the helm, money, you know, throw your cash around. We'd go to the stadium, throw your cash around. Come on, the Blues. You know, what time to be a Chelsea fan. And then we win that first game at Stamford Bridge. Do you remember? Against Man United, 1-0. Idegard Johnson, bit of a weird goal, sort of flicked it over the keeper. Didn't concede. Petr Cech, JT, Lampard, Essien, Idegard Johnson, Didier Drogba, Arjen Robben. The spine, Paulo Ferreira, Carvalho. Do you remember those boys coming in? We didn't know these guys. I knew them from Porto. I knew them from the Portuguese league. But what? We're spending 30 million, 19 million on these two players. It's an enormous amount of money. Linchpins of the team, Ricky Carvalho. What a Rolls Royce of a player. And you know why? Because they hired the right manager who knew what he was doing, that had a plan, that knew what players fit in that plan. And a very clear identity. Now, he's not a manager that lasts more than 3 years. That's fine. That works perfectly in the rhythm of what Chelsea did in terms of the constant cycle of managers that we went through. But the decision to bring Jose in, inspired as it was, as unknown as he was in the UK in terms of Premier League experience, the guy won a Champions League, won the UEFA Cup the year before, won the league. He knew what he was doing. He was ready for the big time, and Chelsea gave him that platform, and it was a thing of wonder. And I look at today, I want to go and think about that and remember what brilliant times we've had. 2012, Champions League final, Munich. Who was there? 1-0 down against the Bayern Munich team that were superior to us in many ways, but we had a conviction and a solidity and a never say die attitude that we just do not have today. You can feel my passion coming through, but it's about balance, guys. And I believe we will get there, but the decision to bring in who we bring in is so key. And I know Rory doesn't like Poch because he's a Spurs fan, he's Spurs, but forget about that. Let the fans have the tribal kind of feel, Spurs, we hate you and all that malarkey. They've had a couple of hard. Jose went to Spurs. At the end of the day, if Poch comes in and wins, we will back him. Whether he's Spurs or Arsenal or Liverpool, whatever. I believe he will do well. But let's see if he comes in. We've not hired anyone yet. So the reality is, we've got to make the right decision. We've got to make the right decision on the basis, not that they're up and coming, that they are ready. They are ready to deal with the mess that is Chelsea at the moment as a squad, and the expectation to win. Bowie came in, thought he was playing Football Manager, didn't really understand it, didn't get it, cleared out everyone, thought that he could be the interim football. I mean, he got it so wrong. If he sits there, and I'm sure he's an intelligent guy, he knows he's got it wrong. He knows he's got it wrong. And it's not for want of spending cash, but you've got to spend it in the right way. There's got to be balance in what you do. Buy young talent. Roman bought young talent. He built a phenomenal youth system, youth team, successful youth team. Built a phenomenal women's team, doing us proud. We can't forget these things. The club as a whole, the men's first team is appalling right now. But we've got a lot of good things going on in the club. It's a time to refresh. I think they will start to get it right. It cannot get any worse. Let's believe that it will happen. But boys and girls, remember where we come from. Remember the journey that we've been on. This is part of that cycle. When someone like Roman leaves the building, it was inevitable that things would go bad. But not this bad, obviously. And not for the reasons that we thought it would be. Because, he's carried on spending money. He spent more money than Roman did in the first season. So we can't argue with that. There's too much money, too much infrastructure, too much desire to make this a success for it not to be. We've got too many fantastic talents. They need to be gelled together. We need to get rid of a load of players. We need to get the squad down to a management. Get that culture back. Get that feeling back. Get that desire back. Get our Chelsea back. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Like and subscribe. I'm back. I'll see you soon. Be well. This is Ped Talks.